Here's the really horrible thing about that. Wyndham School District, when you guys did that shit where you allowed for the Texas Workforce Solutions to have that kind of commingling of assets with Wyndham School District, not only did it serve to effectively trash all of the standards for anybody else that was going through the Texas Workforce Solutions in order to try to get job placement or to try to get their needs met, but you specifically and strategically did it through the Gazelle database. See, the database they use to sign people up for educational assistance is called Gazelle. And you already know that gazelle is an English translation of an Arabic word that has a family name associated with it that was one of your little darlings in your nanotech R&D. And I believe you specifically coded the database for your educational assistance through the Texas Workforce Solutions to be connected with PA accounts, including PA accounts associated with a university that would have to get funding through or some sort of standards associated with the actual Palestinian Authority, so that you could genetically engineer and torture people in the Palestinian territories and attempt to compel and or coerce them to cooperate with your biological terrorism, your chemical and nuclear warfare, your war crimes, your horribly disgusting war crimes derivative economy, your industrial sabotage here in Texas, up to and including all of the experiences I had with trying to get educational assistance, which were preceded by an attempt to try to get me to agree to accede to prostitution of women involved in the industrial trades. And when I didn't do that, you had me kidnapped and sabotaged for what was my later education, up to and including via association with reports connected to the Nuclear Regulatory Commission around behavioral science techniques being applied to people in industrial inspection. You did that. And I've known the whole time and tried to do what I can on one level, but it makes your fallacy even more apparent. Now, here's the thing. I don't give a fuck if while he was here, he agreed to that. And I don't give a fuck if the Palestinian Americans that you allow to own property and be teachers and get retirement benefits and have standing, I don't give a shit if they agreed to it. I didn't agree. And you had no fucking right to use my life and everybody else with whom I was associated as part of this war crimes racket. Period. And you've refused to take responsibility for that, and you refuse to acknowledge that. And over again, I keep getting that there's some sort of big old cockfight involved with people that are in political office right now and are trying to continue abusing their sovereign immunity in conjunction with other people abusing their sovereign immunity in order to cover up for the complete clusterfuck, as the gunny would say, this kind of exploitation has resulted in. Just so you know, you made a database here in Texas that was engaged in all of these criminal subroutines that I absolutely positively know the people of Palestine would never have agreed to. And if you allowed Israel to co-conspire with you, Israel is responsible for what happens in the occupied territories. Period. It's really simple. You can create all of these unconstitutional measures you want. All that does is chip away at what is your legitimacy in claiming you have immunity. Now, let me tell you what I understand has been happening with this COVID-19. Now, part of the reason that COVID-19 is doing what it's doing in the United States is because on some level there has been an attempt to prosecute the United States for war crimes. Now, everybody in the United States wants to go and fucking hide their fucking head in the sand and say, well, we don't agree with participating with the International Criminal Court. Nobody else is allowed to hold us accountable for anything. And we're not going to let them in our court system because of blah, blah, blah. Some bullshit procedure about jurisdiction because you keep trying to hook up all of these other derivatives that take precedence over the actual charges at hand. Now, somebody else launched a proceeding. Apparently, they have authority in your jurisdiction. And what's happening, I believe, is that because these people in political office that are justifiably targeted for corruption keep waving the liability off. They keep using their constituents up to and including actual children as human shields to cover up for their corruption. There is no vaccine. There's no vaccine. All you're doing is trying to give kickbacks to drug dealers you've already hooked up in your pipeline and or offer bribes in the form of harvested DNA from certain select people that have shown a certain level of resiliency in order to co-conspire in covering up for your crimes. You already know that. We all need to know that. And we all need to be able to be availed of an understanding that we're not as stupid as you keep trying to program us to be. Let me get this clear. Refusing to prevent an abuse of the cover of governmental and sovereign immunity is one of the major means by which COVID-19 is allowed to proliferate. This was shown at the very beginning when certain key figures got COVID at the beginning, and then they had to give their little requirement as insurance. Why did the President of the United States submit a COVID test to China? Why did not a goddamn so-called patriot in this fucking country in political office challenge that? Refusing to guard against abuse of sovereign immunity is the number one cause of COVID-19 in the United States. They're guilty. And because nobody is taking them to task for their guilt, they're murdering the people of this country.